Saint Isaac the Syrian, Homily 4, on the love of God and renunciation, and the rest which is in God. The soul that loves God finds rest only in God. First, loose yourself from all external bonds, and then you will be able to bind your heart to God. Because the being bound to God is preceded by the being loosed from matter. After an infant is weaned, it is given bread to eat, and the man who wishes to progress in things divine must first be weaned from the world, like an infant from its mother's breasts. Works performed with the body precede those performed with the soul. Just as in generation, the creation of the body preceded the creation of the soul. The man who has not performed bodily works cannot possess the works of the soul, since they are second born of the first, like the ear of corn from a naked grain of wheat. And he who does not possess the works of the soul is bereft of spiritual gifts. The sufferings of the present age undertaken for the truth cannot be prepared with the delight that is prepared for those who labor in good works. And just as the sheaves of gladness follow for those who sow with tears, so joy follows those who suffer hardship for the sake of God. Bread procured with much sweat seems sweet to the husbandman, and sweet are works for righteousness' sake to the heart which has received the knowledge of Christ. Suffer contempt and humiliation with good will, that you may have boldness before God. The man who with knowledge endures all manner of harsh words without having previously wronged his chider, at that moment places a crown of thorns on his head, and he is blessed. For he is crowned with the imperishable crown in a time that he knows not. The man who flees futile glory with knowledge has already sensed in his soul the hope of the age to come. The monk who says he has left the world and strives with men because of some necessity, lest he should be deprived of his ease, is utterly blind, since although he has voluntarily abandoned the whole body, yet he contends for one of its members. The mind of man who flees the ease of this age has scrutinized the age to come. He who is bound by possessions is a slave of passions. Do not imagine that merely possession of gold and silver is possessiveness. Rather, it is the acquisition of anything whatever which your will clings to. Do not extol the man who endures bodily hardship, yet gives free rein to his senses. I mean that of hearing, and whose mouth is gaping and intemperate, and eyes roaming. If you make it a rule for your soul to practice deeds of mercy, accustom your soul to not seek your justification in other works, lest you find yourself scattering with one hand what you have gathered with the other. For solicitude is necessary in the first instance, whereas breadth of heart in the second. Be it known to you that to remit our debtors their sins is one of the works of righteousness. Then you will see tranquility and luster throughout your entire mind. When you rise above the path of justice, you will cleave to freedom in all of your actions. One of the saints spoke of this, saying, "The merciful man, if he be not just, is blind." That is to say, he must give to another man what he has gained by his own labors and hardship, and not what he has through fraud, injustice, and trickery. And the same saint said in another place, "If you wish to sow your seed among the destitute, sow from your own seed. For if you wish to sow from another man's seed, know that what you sow is the most bitter of tares. But I say, that if the merciful man does not rise above what is just, he is not merciful. That is to say, he is merciful who not only shows mercy to others by giving up from his own means, but who also suffers injustice from other men with joy voluntarily, and not merely keeps and requires justice in his dealings with his fellow men, but also shows them mercy. When a man overcomes justice by mercy, he is crowned. though not with crowns awarded under the law to righteousness, but with crowns of the perfect who are under the gospel. For the ancient law also dictates that a man must give to the poor from his own means, and clothe the naked, and love his neighbor as himself, and forbids injustice and lying. But the perfection of the gospel's dispensation commands the following: Give to every man that asketh of thee, and of him that taketh away thy goods ask them not again. And further, a man must not merely with joy suffer injustice as regards to his possessions, and the rest of external things which come upon him, but he must also lay down his life for his brother. This is the merciful man, and not he that simply shows mercy to his brother by giving him something. And whoever burns within his heart when he sees or hears of something that grieves his brother, such a one is truly merciful, as is also the man who, being slapped by his brother, does not act shamelessly and answer abusively, thus grieving his brother's heart. Honor the work of vigil, that consolation may come near your soul. Persevere in reading while dwelling in stillness, that your mind may be drawn toward the wonders of God at all times. Love poverty with patience, that your mind may be collected and secured from wandering. Detest superfluity, that you may preserve your thoughts untroubled. Withdraw yourself from multitudinous affairs, and have your soul as your only concern, so that you may save her innermost tranquility from dispersion. Love chastity, that you may not be disgraced in the time of your prayer to Christ the judge of the contest. Acquire purity in your actions, that your soul may glisten with joy during prayer, and that at the remembrance of death, rejoicing may be kindled in your mind. Be on your guard against small things, lest you fall into great matters. Be not slothful in your work, lest you be disgraced when you stand in the midst of your companions. And do not be found without provisions for your journey, lest you be left alone by the wayside. Conduct your works with knowledge, lest you abandon your entire course. Acquire freedom in your manner of life, that you may be freed of turmoil. Do not bind your freedom by what affords you pleasure, lest you become a slave of slaves. Love mean apparel for your dress, so that you may set at naught the thoughts which spring up in you, I mean haughtiness of heart and licentiousness. For the man who loves splendid apparel cannot acquire humble thoughts, since necessarily the heart within conforms to the attire without. Who is the man that can acquire a pure mind while loving idle chatter? And who can acquire lowly thoughts while seeking to capture glory from men? Or who can become pure of thought and humble of heart when he is licentious and dissolute in his members? For whenever the mind is drawn away by the senses, it also eats the food of beasts with them. But when the senses are drawn by the mind, they partake together with it of the substance of angels. Vainglory is a servant of fornication, but when it is found in monastic discipline, it is a servant of pride. Self-constraint follows humility, but spacious living is united to the love of glory. Humility attains to divine vision because of her continual self-constriction, and she adorns the soul with chastity. But vainglory, through its continual turmoil and confusion caused by thoughts which arise from encounters with things, gathers abominable treasures for itself, and defiles the heart. And again, vainglory beholds the natures of things with a licentious vision, and occupies the mind with deplorable imaginings. But humility spiritually constricts herself by means of divine vision, and moves the man who possesses her to glorify God. Do not compare those who work signs and wonders and mighty acts in the world with those who practice stillness with knowledge. Love the idleness of stillness above providing for the world's starving, and the conversion of a multitude of heathen to the worship of God. It is better for you to free yourself from the shackle of sin than to free slaves from their slavery. It is better for you to make peace with your soul, causing concord to reign over the Trinity within you, I mean the body, the soul, and the spirit, than by your teaching to bring peace among men at variance. For, as Gregory the theologian says, it is a good thing to speak concerning the things of God for God's sake, but it is better for a man to make himself pure for God. Love uncouthness of speech, joined with knowledge from inner experience, more than to gush forth rivers of instruction from the keenness of your intellect, and from a deposit of hearsay in writings of ink. It is more profitable for you to attend to raising up unto the activity of your cognitions concerning God the deadness of your soul due to the passions, than it is to resurrect the dead. Many have accomplished mighty acts, raised the dead, toiled for the conversion of the erring, and have wrought great wonders. And by their hands they have led many to the knowledge of God. Yet after these things, these same men who quickened others fell into vile and abominable passions and slew themselves, becoming a stumbling block for many when their acts were made manifest. For they were still sickly in soul, but instead of caring for their soul's health, they committed themselves to the sea of this world in order to heal the souls of others, being yet ill in health. And in the proper manner I have stated, they lost their souls and fell away from their hope in God. The infirmity of their senses was not able to comfort or resist the flame of things that customarily make wild the vehemence of the passions, for their senses still required guarding. I mean that these men should not have seen women at all, or have taken their ease, or gained wealth and possessions, or had authority over others, or been exalted above other men. It is better for you if men think you unlearned and uncouth, because of your experience in disputation, rather than one of the wise because of your shamelessness. Become poor for humility's sake, and do not amass riches on account of your shamelessness. Confute those who would strive to dispute with you by the strength of your virtues, and not by the persuasiveness of your words. By the meekness and quietness of your lips, put the impudent and the obstinate to silence, and not by speaking. Reprove the wanton by the nobility of your life, and those who are shameless as regards the senses, by the modest curbing of your eyes. Consider yourself a stranger all the days of your life, wherever you may be, so that you may find deliverance from the injury which is born in familiarity. In every matter consider yourself to be totally ignorant, so as to escape the reproach which follows the suspicion that you wish to set aright other men's opinions. Let your lips always utter blessings, and you will never be reviled. For revilement begets revilement, and blessing begets blessing. In all things think that you are in need of teaching, and you will prove wise throughout your life. Do not pass on to another what you yourself have not attained, lest you put yourself to shame and your lie be exposed by a comparison with your life. If you begin to say something profitable, say it as though you yourself are still learning, and not with authority and shamelessness. Judge yourself beforehand, and prove to your listeners that you are inferior to them in order to show them the way of humility, and to incite them to hearken to your words and readily take to action. Then you shall be venerable in their eyes. And if possible, speak of these matters with tears, so that both you and they may be profited, and the grace of God may be with you. If you gain the grace of God and are deemed worthy to revel in the divine vision of God's judgments and of visible creation, which is the first summit of knowledge, prepare yourself, yea, arm yourself against the spirit of blasphemy. Do not take a stand in this battlefield without weapons, lest speedily you be slain by those who lie in wait for you and deceive you. And let your weapons be tears and continuous fastings with prostrations. Beware reading the doctrines of heretics, for they, more than anything else, can arm the spirit of blasphemy against you. And when you fill your stomach, do not shamelessly search out matters and concepts concerning God, lest you later repent of it. Understand what I say. There can be no knowledge of the mysteries of God on a full stomach. Read often and insatiably the books of the teachers of the Church on divine providence, for they lead the mind to discern the order in God's creatures and His actions, give it strength, and by their subtleness they prepare it to acquire luminous perceptions, and guide it in purity toward the understanding of God's creatures. Read also the Gospels, which God ordained for knowledge for the whole world, that you may find provisions for your journey in the might of God's providence for every generation, and that your mind may plunge deeply into wonder at Him. Such reading furthers your aim. Let your reading be done in a stillness that nothing disturbs. Be free of all concern for the body and the turmoil of affairs, so that through the sweet understanding which surpasses all the senses, you may savor that most sweet taste in your soul, which she perceives in herself because of her constant intercourse with these things. Let not the words of experienced men be to you as those of shallow persons and vendors of words, lest you dwell in darkness till your life's end, and be deprived of any profit from them, and lest, like a man confused, you become troubled in the time of warfare, and fall into a pit because of a thing that is seemingly good. This shall be a sign for you, in whatever manner you wish to penetrate, if you have truly entered into that realm. When grace begins to open your eyes so that you may perceive the divine vision of things such as they are, then your eyes will immediately start to shed torrents of tears, so much so that they will wash your cheeks by their abundance. Thereupon peace comes to the war of the senses, and it is curtailed within you. But if someone should teach you otherwise, do not believe him. Besides tears, you should not ask any other manifest sign from the body as an indication that you have perceived the truth, except the silence of the activity of the members. That is to say, when the mind is exalted above created things, the body also takes leave of tears and of every movement and sensation apart from its natural vitality. For this knowledge does not stoop to take with itself as a companion, figuratively, through mental vision, the forms of things of the visible world. Whether in the body, I cannot tell, or whether out of the body, I cannot tell. God knoweth. And St. Paul heard unspeakable words. All that is heard by the ears can be spoken. He did not hear audible sounds, nor did he see a vision composed of corporeal images of sense perception, but it was by the motions of the understanding, being in rapture, while his will had no fellowship with the body. Eye has never seen such things, nor ear heard the like, and his heart never imagined that the likeness which his diversified knowledge saw would rise up in it through recollection. I mean those things which God has prepared to show the pure of heart by reason of their deadness to the world. This is not corporeal vision received by means of the eyes of flesh through gross distinctions, nor fantasies which they themselves form in their minds in an unreal manner. But this is the simplicity of theoria concerning noetic things, and the things of faith, which is contrary to partition and divisions that exhibit images composed of elements. Gaze upon the sphere of the sun according to your visual power, and only to delight in its rays, but not to investigate the course of its orb, lest you be deprived of your limited visual faculty as well. When you find honey, partake of it with measure, lest becoming satiated, you vomit it up. The nature of the soul is light and imponderable. Hence she sometimes leaps, desiring to ascend to great heights and learn things that surpass her nature. For often she grasps something from the reading of the Scriptures and the divine vision of created things. But when it is permitted, and she compares herself with those things she has grasped, She finds herself much inferior and meaner in regards to the measure of her constitution. For her knowledge has entered into such things that she is clothed with fear and trembling in her thoughts, and she hastens under the constraint of timidity to return to her lowly life upon the earth, being ashamed, as it were, that she dared to approach spiritual matters which surpass her. Because of the fear which these things inspire, a certain timidity is born in her, and discretion beckons to the soul's mind to practice silence and refrain from shamelessness, lest she perish. And it bids her not to seek things which far surpass her, or search out what is more lofty than she. When you are given the power to understand, understand. Do not act shamelessly with regard to mysteries, but worship, silently give glory, and confess what surpasses comprehension. Just as it is good not to eat much honey, so it is also not a good thing to probe into glorious utterances, lest desiring to behold things far distant when we have not yet attained to them, owing to the ruggedness of the way, our faculty of vision should grow feeble and be injured. For sometimes, indeed, phantasms are seen instead of the truth, and when the understanding grows weary from its searching, it loses its focus. Thus the wise Solomon has said well that a man without patience is like a city without walls. There is no need for us to roam about heaven and earth in quest of God, or to send forth our minds into diverse places in search of him. Therefore purify your soul, O man, and drive away from you all cares which concern things outside your nature, and shroud your soul's perceptions and movements with a veil of chastity and humility. By this means you will discover him that is within you, since mysteries are revealed to the humble. If you intend to dedicate your soul to the work of prayer, which purifies the understanding, and to night vigil in order to acquire an illumined mind, betake yourself far from the sight of the world, sever all intercourse, and, even on seemingly good pretexts, do not allow your friends to visit you in your cell, as is the custom, but only those who think and live as you do, and are your fellow initiates. If you fear the confusion of hidden unspiritual converse, which is wont to spring up in the soul involuntarily, cut off and loose yourself from outward converse. Yoke mercy to your prayer, and your soul will see the light of truth. For insofar as the heart ceases to be disturbed by recollection of external things, To such an extent can the mind receive the astonishment that arises from understanding the meanings of the verses of Scripture. For it is an easy matter for the soul to exchange one converse for another, if we strive to show even a little diligence and patience. To exchange one converse for another, occupy yourself with reading books that will make plain to you the subtle pathways of ascetic discipline, of divine vision, and of the lives of the saints. Although you might not sense the sweetness of this at once, owing to darkness caused by recollections of things close at hand. And when you stand up to pray and to say your rule of prayer, instead of thinking of what you have seen and heard in the world, you will find in your mind the divine scriptures you have read, and this meditation will make you forget worldly things. In this manner your mind will come to purity. And herein lies the meaning of the following. Reading assists the soul when she stands in prayer. And also, from reading, the soul is enlightened in prayer. Instead of confusion from without, reading provides the soul with material for different kinds of prayer. This material is the truthful insights that suddenly enter the mind by reason of wondrous recollections of what was read. For how many times has the power of theoria, aroused by reading the Scriptures, astonished and stupefied the mind, even during prayer, and left it standing motionless. This power is also wont to cut off prayer itself by its sweetness, as I have said, to embrace the heart with stillness, and to silence the thoughts of the heart by arresting the members of both body and soul. What I say is known to those who have experienced this very thing in their souls, who have entered into its mysteries, and have not learned of it from others, or stolen it from others, which so often can falsify the truth. Thus, as was said, by reading, the soul is enlightened anew and helped always to pray assiduously and without confusion. It is just as shameful for lovers of the flesh and the belly to search out spiritual things as it is for a harlot to discourse on chastity. A body suffering grave illness shuns fatty food and abhors them. And likewise, a mind occupied with worldly affairs cannot approach the inquiry into the things of God. A fire cannot be ignited in wet wood, nor can the divine fervor be kindled in a heart that loves ease. The harlot does not limit her affections to one man, nor does the soul that is pinioned by many concerns remain faithful to divine teachings. As a man who cannot see the sun because of the feebleness of his eyes is unable to describe to another its light, its rays, and brilliance, since he himself has not beheld it, but knows only from hearsay, so it is with a man whose soul has not tasted the sweetness of spiritual works, and whose way of life has never brought him to the experience of these mysteries, so as to be able to grasp with his mind a likeness that embraces the truth. This man can never find real conviction in his soul, or attain to the exact truth of things through human instruction and exercise in copying books. If you have something above your daily needs, give it to the poor, and then go with boldness to offer your prayers, that is, to converse with God as a son with his Father. Nothing can bring the heart so near to God as almsgiving, and nothing brings such serenity to the mind as voluntary poverty. It is better for you to be called an ignoramus by the many because of the generosity of your hands, and your measureless liberality because of your fear of God, than to be called wise and sound of mind by reason of your niggardliness. If someone on horseback should stretch out his hands and ask alms of you, do not refuse him, for at that moment he is certainly in need, just as one of the destitute. When you give, give generously, and with a joyous countenance, and give more than you are asked for, since it is said, "Send forth thy morsel of bread toward the face of the poor man, and soon you will find your recompense." Do not separate the rich from the poor, nor try to discriminate the worthy from the unworthy, but let all men be equal in your eyes for a good deed. In this way you can even draw the unworthy toward the good, since the soul is easily led to the fear of God by means of bodily things. The Lord ate at the table with the publicans and the harlots, and did not alienate the unworthy, that he might in this way bring all to the fear of God, and that through bodily things they would approach the spiritual. For this reason, and especially because they are your brethren, of your very nature, and have erred from the truth unwittingly, deem every man equally worthy of benefaction and honor, be he a Jew, an unbeliever, or a murderer. When you do good to someone, do not await a recompense from him, and you will receive repayment from God on both accounts. And if you are able, neither do good so as to receive your reward in the future age, but rather practice virtue because of the love of God. The rank of love is more initiated than the rank of labor for God, and it is more initiated in its mystery than the soul surpasses the body in initiation. If you make poverty a rule for your soul, and by God's grace you are freed from cares, and by your poverty you are exalted above this world, then beware lest you become enamored of possessions under the pretext of almsgiving due to your love for the poor. And thus, by taking from one man in order to give to another, you put your soul in turmoil once again, and efface your honor by subjection to men while begging from them, and lose the freedom and nobility of your mind through your concern for matters of this life. For your station is higher than that of the almsgiver. Do not, I beseech you, do not accept subjection. Almsgiving is like the rearing of children, but stillness is the summit of perfection. If you have possessions, distribute them at once. But if you have none, do not desire any. Sweep your cell of every delicacy and superfluous article, and this will lead to your abstinence even against your will. Scarcity in all things teaches a man patience, but whenever we enjoy possessions, we are unable to control ourselves. Those who have gained the victory in the exterior war have acquired confidence against interior fear, and there is nothing that can vexedly compel them. They are not harassed by warfare, either from in front or from behind. By exterior warfare, I mean that which a man heedlessly brings upon himself through the senses, that is, through giving out and receiving, through hearing and seeing, and through speech, taking food, and a gradual, persistent increase of one's affairs. When such things overlie the soul, they blind her, and because of turmoil from without, she is unable to give heed to herself during the onslaught of hidden warfare, and, because of her serenity, to conquer them that suddenly attack her from within. For when a man has barred the city gates, that is, his senses, he fights within, face to face, and does not fear those devising evil outside the city. Blessed is the man who, knowing this and abiding in stillness, does not trouble himself with a multitude of works, but has translated all his physical activity into the work of prayer. And as he proceeds from divine service to divine service, does not join anything else to the work of God that consists in prayer and reading, being confident that inasmuch as he toils in company with God, and has him as his only concern both night and day, he will never be in want of any necessity, for it is on his account that he shuns distraction and works. But if a man cannot persevere in stillness without some manual pursuit, let him work, using this as an auxiliary, but not for gain's sake, satisfying greed. Such occupation is allocated for the weak, but it is a source of tribulation for the more perfect. The fathers have declared that the needy and slothful should work, but they did not make handwork compulsory. At whatever time God should grant compunction to your heart from within, give yourself over to unremitting bows and prostrations. And when the demons try to persuade you to do something else, do not allow your heart to be concerned about any matter. And then behold and wonder at what is born within you from this. There is nothing greater and more laborious in ascetical struggles, and nothing more excites the envy in the demons than if a man prostrates himself before the cross of Christ, praying night and day, and is like a convict whose hands are bound behind him. Do you wish that your fervor should never be cooled, and your tears never impoverished? Govern yourself in this way, and you will be blessed, O man, making what has been told to you your only care both night and day, and seeking nothing else. Then the light will dawn within you, and your righteousness will quickly shine forth, and you will be like a paradise of burgeoning flowers and an unfailing fountain of waters. See what good things are born in a man from struggle. It often happens that when a man bends his knee in prayer and stretches forth his hands to the heavens, fixing his eyes upon the cross of Christ and concentrating all his thoughts on God during his prayer, beseeching God all the while with tears and compunction, suddenly and without warning a fountain springs up in his heart, gushing forth sweetness. His members grow feeble, his eyesight is veiled. He bows his head to the earth, and his thoughts are altered so that because of the joy that surges throughout his entire body, he cannot make prostrations. Therefore, O man, pay attention to what you have read here. Indeed, can these things be known from writings of ink? Or can the taste of honey pass over the palate by reading books? For if you do not strive, you will not find. And if you do not knock at the door with vehemence, and keep constant vigil before it, you will not be heard. Who is the man that, hearing this, will desire outward righteousness, save only that he is unable to persevere in stillness? Yet, if there be someone who cannot practice stillness, since it is the grace of God that brings a man within the door, do not let him forsake the other way, lest by doing so he have no share in either of the paths of life. Until the outer man dies to all the doings of the world, not only to sin, but to every bodily activity, and likewise until the inner man dies to evil thoughts, and the natural stirrings of the body weaken, and the body dies a little by means of labors, so that the sweetness of sin no longer arises in the heart. Until such a time, the sweetness of the Spirit of God will most certainly not arise in a man, and his members will not open themselves to life, and divine thoughts will not enter into his soul, nor be perceived, nor be seen. And until a man has stilled in his heart every concern for the affairs of this life, except for the indispensable needs of his nature, and entrusts this care to God, spiritual inebriation will not overwhelm him, nor will he experience that madness whereof the apostle was accused. Much learning hath made him mad. But when I say these things, I do not mean to banish hope, as though only those who have attained the most sublime perfection can be accounted worthy of God's grace and find consolation. For in very truth, when a man disdains evil actions and separates himself from them entirely and clings to the good, he will quickly sense divine aid. And if he struggle a little, he will find comfort for his soul. He will gain the remission of his sins. He will be deemed worthy of grace, and will receive a multitude of blessings. Yet such a one is found inferior when compared to the perfection of the man who has banished himself from the world, and has found within his soul the mystery of that blessedness which is of the future age, and has laid hold of that thing for which Christ came. To whom be glory together with the Father and the Holy Spirit, both now and ever, and unto the ages of ages. Amen.
Oh